Hey everyone, welcome to Otaku Talk. It's me, your boy, your host, OD. Welcome back. It's been a long ass time since we've had a chapter. I can't wait to get into it. This is going to be a shorter review just because I have had a rough go of it. Since the last time you guys have seen me do a review, I have started off this new year with a bang. I started off this new year with a car accident. Yes, and for those of you that have been on this channel before, know I was just in a car accident like a couple months prior. So that's great. I was chilling at a red light. Drunk driver hits me going full speed at 50, 60 miles per hour. And yeah, car is completely totaled. Luckily, it's all gonna be on. I'm clearly not at fault. I was stopped at a red light, so it's gonna be all on them. But it's been a arduous experience. Clearly, I am okay. I'm doing fine. I'm beaten and bruised up. I look better than I am, but what can I say? Life doesn't stop. You got to keep going. So wish me your best, but it's been rough. I told you guys before, bad things happen in threes, and I was kind of hoping this mini thing was the third, but I guess this is the third. But had my first car accident, burnt the shit out my hand. I forgot what the third thing was, but it was basic, and I tried to be like, this is the third, but no, car accident part two. So what can I say? Anyway, if this is your first time on this channel or you've been here before but haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe. It would mean the absolute world to me. Doing my best in this thing. Anyway, without much further ado, let's get into this review. Chapter 1104 of One Piece. Thank you, Daddy. And no, we will not go into how kind of perverse the name of that title sounds. We're going to go with what Oda wanted, and he wanted it to be nice, wholesome, and innocent. So we are going to keep it nice, wholesome, and innocent. Thank you, Daddy. So we start off this chapter basically how we left off the last one, and Kuma is there, and he is about to punch the ever living crud out of Saturn. We have some back and forth between Vegapunk and Saturn. We have some flashbacks of Kuma, and I just wanted to say I hope this is not it for Kuma. And what I mean by that is I will get to it soon. So there's multiple things I want to talk about. So let's just get through all the BS and get straight to it. That punch was incredible. That punch was great, awe-inspiring. It felt amazing, and I'm so happy for Kuma that this dude that has single-handedly been responsible for so much of the trauma, pain, and turmoil in his life is getting a little bit of the comeuppance he deserves, right? And so Saturn hits this dude and sends him flying into a building that completely collapses. We see that the hand that does punch Saturn is clad in haki, or at least in my opinion it is. His fist is completely black and does tremendous damage to Saturn. It's got to be haki. And also the fact that he is using haki to me means that there is part of him there still alive, because at the end of the day, haki is willpower, force of will. And in my opinion, to have a will, you have to be alive in some way, shape, or form. We've seen repeatedly in One Piece that items can have souls and wills, right? One thing that has always fascinated me about Japanese culture and media in general is in more series than not, they seem to respect and believe that objects have emotions, souls, and whatnot. Or if you spend enough time with an object, or you put enough love into an object, it can manifest into a living thing, or a soul. And so Oda with One Piece seems to be taking that to the next level, and we've seen it with ships, we've seen it with swords, we've seen it with all types of things. And it wouldn't surprise me if either we went the direction of there's a lingering will inside the Kuma cyborg, or despite being a cyborg, being metal, not being human or quote unquote alive anymore, he's still alive because of the mechanisms and whatnot that make swords and boats and whatnot still alive. They're able to retain or manifest or hold a soul in some way, shape, or form. So why wouldn't this empty husk be? Maybe it is actually an empty husk, but Kuma's soul was able to inhabit it. Who knows? That's going to be for Oda to reveal later. So that leads me into some other things I want to talk about with this chapter. So as Kuma's about to knock the lights out of Saturn, Saturn's yelling, screaming at Vegapunk, saying he doesn't understand. How is Kuma here? He detonated the self-destruct switch once Kuma was with the Revolutionary Pirates. It's honestly genius idea. I always thought he was gonna use it. I mean, it would have been dangerous to use in the Mary Joie. It would have been dangerous to use it in anywhere where there was collateral damage that would have impacted the, Gorosei or Celestial Dragons in general. So to try to kill two birds with one stone, I applaud it. That's some good evil thinking. I'm not mad at that at all. Like, I'm mad at it, but like from your perspective, no, that was absolutely the move. But it didn't work. It didn't happen. And so it got me thinking, okay, it got me thinking about two things. So the first and foremost was, okay, so Vegapunk didn't put in that the bomb. Instead, he put in a kill switch. The kill switch, the way I understand that it operates is it's supposed to just turn Kuma off, right? And so from my impression, once Kuma was with the revolutionaries, I do believe he was off. Now, if I was a better, YouTuber, I would have, done the research and like look through the chapters and whatnot, but stuff happened, so I didn't. But I do believe, if memory serves me well, that he was completely shut off and dormant, and then all of a sudden went online and just went who knows where, right? And so what I'm thinking happened is the fact that he sensed Bonnie was in danger. But it's super confusing because I believe what happened was when he got activated again, he went from the Revolutionary Army to Mary Joie, and then from Mary Joie to Egghead, I believe. I think. Or am I remembering that out of order? And he was at Mary Joie, then Revolutionaries, then Egghead. I don't know. And so it was said that this happened a few days ago. We know that this siege has been taking place for a few days. We also know that Bonnie got the necklace from Vegapunk a few days ago. So once again, I still like that theory. A lot of people are saying, oh, it might just be a red herring. And it could be. It could just be a nice little trinket, but I think there's more than meets the eye there. I think it's a little bit weird. If it didn't do anything besides just look like the sun and be pretty. Oda could have had Kuma give Bonnie any number of gifts. And I really, really think the one that makes the most logical sense is to give her some kind of protection where if at any point in time she is in danger, she needs help, anything like that, Kuma can break protocol and go over to her. Now, here's the caveat though. During this whole interaction and exchange, Vegapunk not once brings up anything like that, not once mentions the pendant or the possibility or some kind of secret programming or whatever or coding that would allow for Kuma to do this. In fact, he is very explicit in the fact that he did put in a kill switch and he doesn't understand how, Kuma could be here other than, the power of love, which I do think was super corny. Like, I knew, yes, like to all of us, the reader, it's very clear that yes, this is the power of love, but it's one thing to like show it or imply it than to say it's the power of love. It kind of goes back to like fucking Fairy Tail where with like the power of friendship, which like as someone that loved Fairy Tail when it started and loathed it at the end, that is not the direction you want to go. But yeah, Vegapunk essentially says like, yeah, I don't know. No, I did not put a bomb, but I did put a kill switch and it clearly didn't work. This is just the power of love, and maybe we're gonna see something like that allude to like maybe the robot that is on Egghead. Maybe things can be powered by love, or AKA will, or will of love. And we find out that Luffy, because a lot of people have been talking about forever, and I haven't talked about it on my channel a lot, but a lot of people have been talking about the fact that Luffy might be able to be a power source for the ancient the ancient giant, that Luffy might be able to be a power source for a bunch of the ancient Void Century technology that they run on Freedom or whatever. I'm spalling. It might be something else, but you get the point. I digress. And that, maybe they run on the drums of liberation. So maybe that's kind of what's happening with Kuma. Maybe it's not quite the power of love. Maybe it's the power of liberation, the power of freedom, the power of Joy Boy. Who the hell knows? I haven't the foggiest. In addition to that, it makes me wonder so many other things, because Saturn explicitly states that he tells Vegapunk that he needs to put in this bomb and he better do it. And if he doesn't do it, he'll know, because I'm a science guy too. And so this just has a lot of implications and ramifications, because my thing is like, okay, so did you not check? Did you check? How did you miss it? Did he put a fake bomb in? Were you lying about checking? Did you check, but you're not actually as good a scientist as you thought you were or said you were, and so you missed it? Also, that makes me wonder about other things Vegapunk has said. Like, for example, I've complained for a really long time now. One, I complained about Kuma, and I said, why not just do a bunch of these things and lie and say he did? And I thought Oda's answer to that question was what we learned, was it last chapter or last couple chapters, where, Saturn's like, do this, I'm going to be watching, I'm going to be monitoring, and if you do anything untoward or against the script, I'm going to step in. So I was like, okay, I guess that means Vegapunk couldn't have done anything. But now that we know that, Vegapunk did do his own thing, did go behind Saturn's back, where does it start? Where does it stop? What about the Seraphim? Are the Vegapunks actually like under the Gorosei on the command ladder or not? Even though obviously they are, because they overrode the Vegapunk orders when Saturn showed up on the island. But is there some kind of super override that Vegapunk can enable? Once again, I hope that's not the direction we go, because personally, I'm a big fan of the plot point idea that if the Seraphim, Kuma, and all these things that are programmed to work for the government do have to make a decision that they don't want to, that their lineage factor, that their will is going to override it. And that's kind of what we're seeing with Kuma. That's what we saw with Boa Hancock. And I think there's one other example. But I really hope that this is how Egghead ends in general, right? What's next? Well, immediately, obviously, Bonnie is just ecstatic and so happy to see her father, and she goes over and turns into her child form, hugs him. Unfortunately, Kuma's not all the way there. He's just there enough to fight, or maybe to just throw that one punch. But other than that, he's not reacting. He's not communicating with her. He's, a husk, a shell of his former self, right? And so while they're in this compromised position, Saturn has recovered. He's back. He's freaking furious. Obviously, he just got punched into a series of buildings by a slave nonetheless. And speaking of, I didn't mention this before, but something that has been bothering me with Saturn and Kuma is I don't understand how you had Kuma there as a child on that island in front of you, how Kuma was surrounded by the Rocks pirates, Kuma was surrounded by Celestials, and how he was able to get off that damn island. Like, literally, this dude was in front of you. And just like with the Egghead, quote unquote, flashback, or the Egghead part that we skip where they capture York and stuff, similar with, what's it called? God Island or whatever. I want to know what happened, because how are you within like reaching distance of Kuma and he is able to get away, not only being a slave, not only being a buccaneer, but also having stolen like an important, a treasured devil fruit from you guys. So I digress. Anyway, he comes out and he starts regenerating his arm. Now, I thought that was super cool. Now, we already knew he could regenerate, right? With like the stab and the other injuries we had, but we don't quite know the extent and the lengths in which it happens. And to know he can regenerate whole limbs is kind of insane, because regenerating whole limbs, in my opinion, is a little bit different than like regenerating like a wound on your body, right? This is an entire limb, and he's able to do that spontaneously. And then he goes to like stab Kuma and Bonnie with his little spider legs, and Sanji is like, hell no, that's not gonna fly. And either Diablo Jambe or Ifrit Jambe kicks his leg out the way. After that, what's it called? Frankie follows up with a radical beam, and that's when essentially Kizaru's like, "All right, time to stop playing on the sidelines. The stakes have changed. Not only do we have to deal with a Yonko crew, but Kuma, a former warlord, is also here, so I can't really afford to sit on the sidelines anymore." And he joins the fight, unfortunately, on Saturn's side. I don't know. I've been super, expectant of him to switch sides at some point. All the things that are happening, you would think he would feel bad at this point. We've seen that he has a connection with Vegapunk, a connection with Bonnie, a connection with Kuma, a connection with Sentomaru. And so that maybe he would switch sides, but he hasn't. I know a lot of people were thinking, that he was the one that gave Luffy food. Honestly, I'm still on the fence about that. Personal opinion, I don't think it was him, mainly because the logistics don't add up. I think he was still recovering from the hit, from the booming Don whip or whatever. Like, I think he was still actually recovering. Also, in order to get the food, he would have to light speed over to one of the machines, let the machine make food, which honestly, the machine doesn't work at light speed. So at least, let's say it works super fast and makes the food in like 10 to 30 seconds, okay? And that's me being liberal. 10 to 30 seconds, it can just fabricate fucking food. I don't know. And then, so after that, he has to whip back over, put the food next to Luffy, and then whip back to his spot like, oh, it could happen. Doesn't make sense to me. If it does end up being true, well, I have egg on my face, but it's a little bit weird. Um, I'm still leaning primarily with the Caribou idea. I just think he did it in Wano. Why wouldn't he do it here? He wanted to join Luffy's crew initially in, I want to say, Sabaody, and that didn't work out. And he works for someone, and he probably has information, and probably his best bet of getting off this island is to help Luffy and to ensure that Luffy lives. And now Luffy, by the way, is completely missing. So it wouldn't shock me if perhaps Luffy disappeared into Caribou Swamp, or was taken away by Caribou, or something of that, something like that. Because where the hell is Luffy? Where did all this food come from? Who is on this island, and who could have done this for Luffy? And the only answer I really have is Caribou. Also, real quick, something I wanted to mention is I was pretty sure that Kuma got like part of his head blown off, and like part of his leg blown off by Akainu and Mary Joie. And so I'm really, really confused how he's here looking relatively repaired. Did he do it that himself? Did Vegapunk make nanobots? Or is it just one of those things where, like, I think Oda forgot, but, it's not that big a deal? Because honestly, I didn't care and I didn't notice until I was starting to think about going back to the previous chapters, because I wanted to check when Bonnie got, not only when did Bonnie get the necklace, but when did Kuma leave the revolutionaries, and if it was before or after the Mary Joie raid. I, for the life of me, cannot freaking remember. But yeah, I don't think anyone on the revolutionaries would have been able to repair him that quick. I don't think he would have been able to repair himself that quick. So I do think it's an error on Oda's part, but who cares? Not that big a deal. I do know that it's going to be something that people nitpick, and maybe if it was a series that I wasn't so biased towards, maybe I would nitpick it. But honestly, in a world where like Luffy can like drink milk and regrow his teeth, like you know, you know, maybe I don't know, maybe it's like Wapple metal or something. I don't know. So anyway, like I said, Sanji and Frankie decide to jump Saturn. Kizaru steps in. He says, "I've seen you guys have grown. Let's see how much." I'm wondering why he said that. Also, the one line that really, really took me by surprise was he says something along the lines of, "You guys are about to make me look silly. I wish I brought darker shades." So I think that once again is testament to the fact that like he doesn't want to be doing this, that there is possibly a road to redemption. There is possibly a road to like turncoating for him where he does help the Straw Hat survive. Maybe he's putting on a good show right now. Maybe this is all, but like the fact that he says that to me means that he doesn't want them to see his eyes, either because he's gonna cry because they'll see the sadness, and because why else would he say I should have brought darker shades and you guys are gonna like make me look bad or embarrass me, something like that, because it just doesn't make sense. So it really does show that like Kizaru is showing a modicum of, resentment or in turmoil in having to do this. And also, I think just legitimate interest in seeing how much the Straw Hats have grown thus far. So anyway, while all of that is happening, Bonnie tells Atlas, Vegapunk, come get me. My dad can't move. And so Atlas comes over, grabs Vegapunk and, sorry, Kuma and Bonnie and runs away. And then we have this scene with all the ships surrounding the island. And Saturn has called about a buster call. He's like, we got a Buccaneer slave. We got Joy Boy. Who else did he say? We have a disgruntled scientist, government employee. Let's just eradicate them all. It's an infestation. He talks once again earlier when he's referring to Vegapunk about the error in humans and stuff like that. So once again, just really driving home the force that either Saturn is he himself not a human, or he's like the other Celestials that just have their heads so far up their ass that they don't consider themselves humans anymore. But I hope he's not a human. We already know that that space exists, that there are aliens in the One Piece world canonically. So like I wouldn't be surprised if it's a situation where we have the Celestials who think that they're above humans, that think that they're, not human, and then the actual Gorosei actually are not human. Speaking of, we already have this much going on with one Gorosei member, and honestly not too impressive. Like, yes, his durability is insane, his regeneration is insane, but and I guess his AP is insane too. But the fact that these attacks are actually landing, the fact that these attacks are actually doing damage, kind of means I think it's gonna be like an Orochi type of situation, right? Where like they're not overtly powerful, but their abilities are going to make them difficult to deal with. Also, I was kind of hoping that at least one of the Gorosei members might turn coat. One of them has to be good. Thought it could have been Saturn up until this point. No. Right now, my other money is on the blonde hair dude, and the only reason I have my money on him is because he looks the youngest out of all of them. And for me, youth is a bit more malleable. When the older you are, the more set in your ways you are, the more obstinate and indignant you are. So maybe this dude was made a Gorosei at an earlier age, and so he's more susceptible to change and turning. If it's not him, my only other guess would be Gandhi, just because he looks like Gandhi. And I mean, come on. But even though Gandhi was racist, so maybe looking like Gandhi ain't gonna help him. But yeah, there's that. Also, I forgot to mention this earlier. Vegapunk earlier in the chapter talks about how, and I kind of hated that Oda did this. I'm not like super mad about it, but I did hate how like Oda does this thing where he like has Vegapunk like lead on with something and then doesn't finish. And basically Vegapunk implies that like maybe the reason that Kuma is able to continue to like operate despite, the kill switch being flipped and all that is because he's a Buccaneer and their ability to speculate here. We don't know. What ability do the Buccaneers have? And like it's kind of annoying because like I not a real complaint, but like, all right, we just got the Lunarians. They're weird. They have these abilities. Here's a new race. We have the Buccaneers, blah, blah, blah. And then didn't Big Mom say that she had, all but 3 races in her island? And at the time, I thought the only missing race was like Giants and I think Lunarians. But now it's like, okay, there's Buccaneers. So like, I think there's some other like species that aren't in Big Mom's family. So it was a little bit wonky for me, but it's just one of those things with One Piece where as we go along with the series, we're gonna learn more. So just be patient till all the pieces fit together. I've said this time and time and again from probably my first video to now, but One Piece, in my personal opinion, is gonna be one of those series that's best after it's completed and on the second read through. I think once we complete One Piece, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be amazing. We're gonna love it, but that's not how it's going to be completely. I think it's Renaissance or whatever is going to be knowing everything you know at the end of the series, going back and rereading or watching the entirety of the series and watching it through this lens of like you have all the information and all the pieces now, and you're like, oh my god, I'm so blind. It's been there the whole time type shit. Anyway, I think that's everything. If I forgot something, I'll just, do it in the edit. But hey everyone, post production OD here. So I wanted to talk about a couple things that I might not have addressed. The first thing is with Saturn. I compared him earlier to like, an endgame type of Orochi, right? And so we know he can regenerate, but what is the extent of regeneration? Don't know if it's attributed to a Devil Fruit yet or if he's simply a demon. But I really, really don't think that he actually is, just immortal and can regenerate infinitely. That just wouldn't make sense. It's not something what we've seen are. Even in Wano, and I remember it vividly, like how many times are they going to have to kill Orochi? How long is it going to be Orochi? And I think in the end it took 8 times. I think it was one of those things where it had the community in an uproar because to this day we don't even really truly know if Orochi is dead. I think Oda later on confirmed in a SBS, but it's one of those things. So what I'm wondering at this point in time is this a situation where only a certain level of damage or a certain level of sustained damage is going to be what's necessary to take out Saturn and the other Goro? Once again, I don't think they're powerful per se in terms of attack potency and whatnot. I think their main things are going to be their endurance, their endurance and durability. There's that, which leads me into my next point. I really, really hope that how this fight ends isn't just a big punch, isn't just a big attack. What I would really, really, really prefer is if it's a situation where Kuma takes all of the pain, hurt, turmoil, trauma that has been inflicted on him his entire life from being a child, from childhood, being a slave, both his parents being killed, to losing his friends, to losing other slaves, to the revolutionaries, to losing his girl, not his wife, because he didn't marry her, but like losing his girl for all the shit and trauma he endured with Bonnie, all of that. I hope that Kuma is able to take all of that pain, torture, torment out of himself. Those Sunday services where he took on people's pain. If he's able to take those experiences, pain, that memory out of himself and put it into Saturn and really just have a shock to his system, because on one end you might assume, hey, that doesn't make any sense. Why would that even work? You know what I mean? Like, because Saturn's what? Apathetic, right? He doesn't really care about anything. He's emotionless. He's void of it. But I think that's actually what will make it super effective, right? I think it's one of those things where because he's so apathetic, so devoid of emotions, it's new to him. He doesn't have a quote unquote resistance. He wouldn't be experiencing it. It's a totally, completely foreign experience for him. And so Kuma takes this raw, unadulterated, unfiltered pain, suffering, and puts it into Saturn, and Saturn can't handle it, and it devastates Saturn so much he suffers tremendous
emotional damage,
and that's how he gets defeated. So that would be really cool. And then after that point, I don't know if it's a situation where his brain breaks, where he's not really dead, but he's in maybe a vegetative state. He's no longer a threat. It could also lead to like him turning, turncoat, switching sides. I'm gonna let that theory die a little bit. I don't know if it's gonna happen with Saturn, but the point is there was a precedent set with the fact that was it the Doflamingos and Carlos, Yozgard and whatnot, they turn sides. So the Celestials are probably microcosms of the Gorosei. So I would not be surprised in the slightest if there was possibly a change of heart, and it would be kind of if his experiences, pain and suffering kind of led to that. I just don't want it to be a big punch. I think it would be really cool if it was an antipose to how Kuma and Zoro took on the pain of others, their loved ones and their crew upon themselves, sacrificing themselves for others. I think it would be cool if we do like an antipose, antithesis, like reverse of that scene where Saturn simply doesn't have what it takes in order to hold on and maintain and take on that kind of pain. And then finally, the last thing I want to talk about is I saw this really cool Reddit post, and it kind of talked about why Kizaru has been a little bit lacking. So for anyone that knows that I have been a fan of Kizaru, my propaganda, I mainly because one, I think he's a cool character. I like his like of being cool, but having one of the fastest roots, and also I always have found that light, my opinion, is like one of the strongest devil fruit in the entirety of like fiction. It's light after all. Applications, the of it is just like through the roof. And so, in my opinion, the showcase he's been getting during Egg has been far from impressive. Sabaody was way better, and that was when the crew was ready. And now it's like, I know people are going to be like, well, they're stronger now. Of course, he's not going to be as overwhelmingly powerful. But my thing is, like, we just saw Aokiji put in work on, like, all of the, what's it called? The Blackbeard pirates and, like, Burp and all these things. It's kind of inexcusable. So what the Reddit post was basically alluding was the fact that there's a theme in One Piece where conviction and will kind of rules all, right? And so throughout the entirety of this, we see that, Kizaru is really not about all of this. Like, his conviction is really waning here. Like, numerous times he says, I don't want to do this. I don't want to hurt them. Like, don't make this harder than it has to be, because it's weighing on him. He's really not about this life. He even says he wishes he had darker shades because, he's clearly sad. Shit, he might even start crying. Meanwhile, the people that he is fighting, their conviction, their wills are rock fucking solid. They're ready to die here. They're ready to fight for what they believe in, to fight for what they believe is right, and nothing's going to stop them. And so they're going to be fighting at their peak, their optimum performance and stuff like that. And so I'm very curious to see how this goes and if it possibly leads to him defecting. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It's me, your boy, your host, OD. This has been Otaku Talk. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great rest of your week. Peace.